All right, welcome everybody back to Chart Request Live, the show where you guys bring the tickers and we chart it out for you. My name's Patrick Dunawilla. I am the editor of the Chart Report, and joining me today we got Sam Gatlin. Sam, how's it going?
It's good, Patrick. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I'm in New York City right now, so nice to be back in my old stomping grounds.
Yeah, the
I take it
opposite
you're at home.
coast.
What's that?
You went to the opposite coast,
Yes, yeah,
the East
different
Coast.
coast.
Yeah.
So let's you want to start it off with the S&P?
Yeah, well, I think this is a big one to watch right now.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, September 19th, we got a little breakaway gap and we've just kind of stalled out here at all-time highs. And now we are retesting former resistance from July and August, potentially flipping that into support. But that is to be determined. The Bulls need to step up here. We have the dollar making new 30-day highs.
Sam, you mentioned that breakaway gap, and it was such an energetic breakout. I think a lot of people got bullish on that breakout. How could you not, right? But here like you mentioned, we've just gone sideways and just chopped.
Right,
And
no follow through from that move.
but at the meantime, I mean, we've seen sentiment get pretty scared, right? We've seen the VIX shoot up to what, like 20 or something like that, right? Um, what did it do? I mean, it was up a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we've got the
at
VIX
29.
above 20.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
you are seeing that fear, even though we really, at this point, this is nothing more than a classic retest, right? Pretty normal.
Right. I think a lot of people have been talking about September being a strong month, which is contra to its seasonal tendency, I guess. It's
Yeah.
usually the worst month of the year, September.
Yeah.
October is
And
usually
I've
not the
been on
best
that camp
either.
too. It's like, what does that say, right? Like we were supposed to do poorly last month, but we didn't.
Right.
But I'm trying to pair it back a little bit because October's been a pretty rough month. October's been even worse in election years than September. So, we're still not totally out of the woods in terms of seasonality, but like you said, man, classic retest at this point. I don't think there's super reason for alarm, right?
Right, yes. And next week, next Friday, we have earnings season starting off once again.
Ah, yes, Bank Friday.
JP Morgan, Bank Friday, that's right. So, like, we've got JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, pretty much all of them, right?
Yeah, and that'll be pretty telling.
That'll be very telling, yes.
But
So
let's get
something to
right
look
into
forward
it.
to.
Let's start off with the mailbag.
Let's do
Then
it.
we will get to the tickers in the chat right after that. But let's start off with BWXT. And this one is from Hanson. His time frame is about 6 months.
Okay, Hanson. So what we're looking at here is a $10.5 billion aerospace and defense stock, but really they're more of a uranium stock. So this company is providing machinery for these nuclear reactors, which have been in the news a lot. So we have it was Microsoft, right? And doing
Yes.
the Three Mile
Is it
Island. Is that
CEG
correct?
or something, right? CEG, that
Right.
utility company.
Yep. Yep.
And
Exactly.
Sam, this one's also billed as a aerospace and defense company, which I think is interesting because with all
Yeah.
the conflict in the Middle East this week, aerospace and defense catching a bid in a big way. So this one, to your point, is kind of benefiting from multiple themes, right?
Right. And it does kind of look, I can like overlay ITA with this, but looks an awful lot like
Oh wow.
ITA. Very similar basing
Yeah,
pattern,
pretty
making new
similar.
all-time highs. We're at
Oh,
our
you're
first extension level from this prior drawdown, prior consolidation. So it was 110, let's call it level, is a big one, but we're above there currently. So the path of least resistance is above 220, 223, 224. I love this one, Patrick. And if you want
I like it.
uranium exposure, like this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and
The,
Sam, drop that down to like a daily chart and zoom in on that smaller base that's formed over
yeah,
the past year.
yeah,
And I call it smaller, but that's like what, 6 month base? Or no, yeah, about
right.
6 month base.
Yeah. We've decisively resolved it too, Patrick.
So just screaming out of there.
Yeah.
Um,
RSI's at 82.
let's move on to a more popular one. Let's go to Meta. This one's
Okay.
from Jeffrey.
So we got to zoom out on this one, Patrick.
Yeah, we do.
So we had a nasty drawdown after we peaked in late 2021. We fell over 75%, it looks like. We are currently making new all-time highs. We retraced that entire drawdown pretty much in a V. What did we have here,
Yeah,
Patrick? 9 consecutive months higher.
yeah.
That is insane, Patrick. How many times have you seen
It
that?
sure is. It sure is.
So here we are making new all-time highs. Let's zoom in. We're kind of in the middle of a bigger range, a ways away from our first target. I suppose we could fib out the most recent drawdown. And so that peaked at around 530. So we're also in the middle of this range here. What do you do here, Patrick? We're
Yeah, so
in
I
the
mean,
middle of a
on
lot of
this one,
ranges.
it's tricky because if you use your fib scale, or if you use a non-log scale for your fibs, we're
Mhm.
at the 161.8 now. So
Oh my,
it's kind of
are my
tricky on
fibs
this
messed
one.
up?
I wouldn't say they're messed up, but just depending on how you use it on your scale, depending on what scale you're using, yeah.
Ooh, my fibs are messed up, Patrick. Great point. Thank you for that.
We're kind of there now, especially if you look like on a weekly or daily.
Yeah, 567's that level. Wow.
Yeah.
570. Let's call it. It looks
And then
great.
what's after that? Eight.
863 after that. I mean, it's got
Yeah.
a upside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's hung out at this level for a minute.
right. And we did just resolve like a 6 month plus correction. And it was not really a correction through price. It was more just a correction through time,
What
but
do you think of the
correction
sector?
nonetheless. What?
What do you think of the sector, the communication sector? Is
Mm,
it
well, it pretty much is like Meta and Google, right? Like that
yeah,
is
I think Meta is the
communication.
largest in there.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at like an RSPC, an equally weighted look at communications, and it is resolving a multi-year trend reversal here. Just went out at its highest price since early 2022 last week. So the trend is higher for communication stocks broadly, for sure. For me, I want to really lean into those monsters like Meta and Google and Netflix. You even have at the prior cycle high. Netflix looks great here.
Yeah, Netflix looks great.
Yeah,
I
I'd rather
would have
lean into
forgotten
these
about
though
one
than
too.
like a Comcast or like something like
Yeah, yeah. Which is another big one in the communication sector. I
right.
say big, but it's still like, a fifth of the size that Meta
Yeah,
is in terms of weighting.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
are you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it, Patrick.
Let's do this one's from Dan AYI. Is that Acuity Brands?
Acuity Brands.
He says breakaway gap of a huge base going back to 2016.
Yeah.
Can you verify that?
So $9 billion looks like a nice boring industrial stock. Love to see it.
I
So
believe
yeah,
they make a bunch of clothing brands. Oh no, maybe not. Electrical products.
electrical
I believe.
products. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very boring. They just make money.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're resolving a massive, looks like 8 year accumulation pattern here. Breakaway gap. It was Dan, is that right?
Yeah.
Dan brought this to us. So yeah, great call there. Looks like we're clearing this major level of resistance.
Yeah,
On
this is a
the
big
heels
week
of
for
an
this
earnings
stock.
report too, Patrick. You love to see that. So they beat top and bottom
You'll
line
love to see it.
first.
Earnings are out of the way. You don't got to worry about it for another 3 months.
Yeah, love that. And the 2 days following that earnings reaction, we've just traded sideways. So not
Yep.
giving anything up really. So this is about as decisive of a resolution as you'll get.
Let me ask you this. Do you wait for the retest or do you just get involved here and then
I don't know,
throw a
Patrick. That's a great
stop?
question. Like the
Like throw a
best
stop maybe at the
breakouts don't
low?
retest. So
Right, right.
I don't know. This looks like a pretty nice 8-year base with a breakaway gap. I would not at all be surprised if this one did not retest the 280 level.
So you just get in here maybe and then throw a stop at where it gapped up?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. You could also like set a stop at this day's low. So like 285 could be your stop and kind of not let it get into this volume gap here. But this one looks great on all time frames. Getting
And then
overbought
did you
on this
mention target
breakout.
already?
Yeah, the target is 413. So we're
Yep.
about to get that $300 roll. Could get us to like 320 pretty fast here. Maybe consolidate there for a few weeks, and we just continue to climb higher towards 400. This is a great stock, though. Thanks for bringing this to us.
Yeah, and Sam, I had this one all marked up too, and I just like hadn't looked at it in a while. So I'm glad we this week was really important for the setup. It
Was
was looking great for the last, I'd say, 6 months, but finally this week it finally made its move.
right. And I just love the whole setup here of the breakaway gap on earnings, and it's completing an 8-year basing pattern. Like, you remember when Nvidia broke away from that base
Oh
after
yeah.
reporting
How
earnings?
could I forget?
I mean, that is what I think of when I think of this pattern. Like
You're
this could look
talking
like
about
that.
like May 2023, right?
Yeah, back then we were in a multi-year consolidation.
I mean, this one isn't as strong as Nvidia's one, but that's a high
Right.
bar, right? That's
Yeah,
a
no, like that's the textbook breakaway gap though. That's what I
And
think
for
of.
those who don't know what a breakaway gap is, why don't you explain that real quick?
Yeah, so let's pull up the chart. So we peaked, Nvidia peaked and rolled over in late 2021. It suffered a looks like almost 70% drawdown. We retraced that in the next year, and then we had earnings in May 2023. We were below the prior cycle high, but we gapped above it and never made another low. That the day of the earnings reaction was the low. So like we just never retraced it at all. Didn't even think about it. We just went sideways from there. And how much is Nvidia up since then?
Oh my gosh, a lot.
A lot, over 200%. It looks like.
I mean, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
that's
know that
what
it
these patterns can
drew
result in.
down that much. I didn't know that it fell almost 70% in that bear
Yeah, it was
market.
a
Wow.
nasty bear market.
Wow. Just think of that. You could have bought the leader 70% off. If of course nobody's buying the low.
Generational buying
But,
opportunity that was.
let's move. Right. This one's from Nick. Let's move on to Cracker Barrel, CBRL.
Okay. So this is a $1 billion restaurant, a staple really here in the Midwest, Patrick. I'm not sure if you've ever
I hear
experienced
it's an AI
Cracker
play
Barrel,
now.
but
I
it's
hear it's an
nice.
AI play now. I'm kidding.
It's not bad.
You
They've
never
got
know
good
these
fried
days,
chicken,
man.
mashed potatoes.
I've been to a Cracker Barrel. They're great. They're
They're
great.
great. So really the stock is a mess though, Patrick.
Yes.
So we peaked back in the early 90s and consolidated for several decades around this $40 level. 35, 40. It's a big level. I'm drawing with a crayon here. So peaked in 93. It took until really 2011 after the great financial crisis to resolve this base and break out to all-time highs. And now we have retraced that entire move and potentially carved out a multi-decade distribution pattern here.
Yeah, it's a
Really,
nasty looking last 5 years there. So
it is a nasty looking
or
last
really
five
last
years.
10 years. It's just
Yeah, I can draw a big scary arc like that. Make it red. But really, this is a key level of interest to watch. It's going back multiple decades. Buyers really need to step up here and defend. I guess I would call the neckline 34, Patrick. So if we can break 34, I think this is a great short opportunity. But until that happens, there's really nothing to do here. I would expect the bulls to step in here, at least in the short term, and support this stock. What do you think about this pattern? It's not
I mean,
great.
it is a really messy one. I think, you're looking at a monthly chart, but if you look at in like a daily, uh, maybe you get like a bit more of a rebound here. You got RSI,
Yeah, you are getting
the
overbought.
divergence, things like that. But it has a lot of work to do. Like there's a gap at 55 around there that it needs to fill. It's got a lot of work to do. I'd like to see it reclaim 55. That's those COVID lows. And that would be kind of more of a fail breakdown look. But I mean, I agree with you, right? Like it's got a lot of proving to do.
I would say the path
work.
of least resistance is sideways.
Yeah, then you're being generous there, probably too, right?
Yeah. Like I don't really have
Yeah.
conviction in this one breaking down, but I don't really want to buy it for a bounce either.
Yeah.
One of those.
So you said 35 would be the level that maybe would.
Yeah, like 34,
Right.
35. Yeah. It's messy.
So let's why don't you hit Home Depot, and that's the last one in the mailbag, and then we'll move on here.
So let's pull up my stats here. So
And
Home
Sam, I
Depot's
gotta say, man, this one's looking.
it's looking, yeah. So this is the third largest component in the consumer discretionary sector of the S&P 500. So you've got
Would you say
Amazon,
you're more of a Home Depot guy or a Lowe's guy?
Home Depot for sure.
Home Depot guy?
Yeah. Uh, they're like the same thing though, aren't they?
Yeah.
You have an opinion about
I
the other?
I don't. But I'll tell you, the chart wise, more of a Home Depot guy.
Is Lowe's, is this the insurance one? L. Yeah. So the the right one is
There's
that always confuses me.
yeah.
So I don't know, Patrick. Is there really much here? Looks like sideways for multiple decades to me.
Yeah, probably not too much.
Yeah, not much there. But this is an important stock nonetheless. This is the third largest component of consumer discretionary behind Tesla and Amazon, both behemoths. So we've got Amazon at 22%, Tesla 14%, and Home Depot is above 8% of the consumer discretionary sector. We are right at the prior cycle high, trying to resolve a multi-year accumulation pattern in the context of a long-term uptrend for this stock. I think 420 really is the level you want to see this stock break above. But if we can start closing above 420, I think you can be long with an initial target of 514, 515,
It's a nice one.
$500.
Look at that uptrend, right? I mean, beautiful primary long-term uptrend, and then it's gone nowhere for 2 years.
Exactly, Patrick. So like since the financial crisis, this stock's up over 2,000%.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest mover, but the
Why don't you,
path it's taken there is pretty much straight. You know,
You didn't bring up Lowe's on an absolute basis yet, have you? Donovan here points out that Lowe's already broke out. But they
yes,
look
a
very
great
similar,
point.
look
Yeah.
nearly identical.
Same stock here. Long-term uptrend, multi-year consolidation. Lowe's has reclaimed that prior cycle high and is printing new all-time highs.
I think you probably can't go wrong with either one though. Like
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. So Lowe's is
you were in the right place by looking at a ratio chart earlier, but we kind of found that was kind of inconclusive, right? But
Yeah.
you look at something like FedEx and UPS, which is a similar situation, right? They're kind of like this duopoly kind of thing where there's two major players in the space. That is a different story. FedEx and UPS look totally different. But they look nearly identical.
right. Yeah. Home Depot is about twice the size of Lowe's, though.
Is it really? Wow.
If that means anything to you, then I would pick Home Depot.
Yeah.
Vehicles are roughly equivalent. But no, Lowe's looks great. Home Depot looks great. Consumer discretionary looks very interesting. JC's really been pounding the table on sector rotation coming into discretionary stocks.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure discretionary was the best performing sector in September. Obviously, utilities have been really strong in the last 6 months, 3 months, but consumer discretionary all of a sudden making a comeback. And what do you make of that, right? Like on one hand, you have the utilities leading, and then you're seeing the discretionary start to make a comeback. It's uh, yeah,
The
maybe
lifeblood of a
utilities.
bull market, Patrick, right?
Yeah, right.
Sector
Even
rotation.
defensive ones catch up.
Yeah, and we've got like European financials making new multi-decade highs last month.
Let's are you ready to hit the
Yeah,
chat?
yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's start off with you mentioned financials, right?
Yeah,
Let's do FNF. You were talking about European financials. This I don't think this is European, but I'm
no,
gonna
so
talk
this
FNF.
is a $16.5 billion specialty insurance stock.
Fidelity National Financial.
Looks like they're from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes,
So
sir.
we are resolving a multi-year accumulation pattern here, this big mess in the context of a longer term uptrend. We peaked in 2007 and broke out in 2013, and that base will give you a fib up here at 58 and a half. That's not a bad level to trade against, and from there you could have a target of 92. Kind of depends on your time frame there. I think that would be a longer term, maybe 6 to 12 month time frame kind of trade there. But you could also let's zoom in on a daily. So get rid of these lines, and let's fib out the prior cycle's base. So the stock peaked in early 2022. Took over 2 years to resolve a base, and we have broken out now. We are in the middle of a range here, so there's not much to do in the short term. MACD is negative, so maybe we get some type of pullback here towards this 58 level in the very short term.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? Because
It's tough.
you're in the middle. You're sitting
Yeah,
kind of no man's land, right, between entry and the
right,
target.
right,
So you either miss the trade completely and let it hit its target, or you let it come back and retest, right?
right. Yeah,
Because where else do you trade against, right? It's kind of
yeah.
hard.
There is no history here.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But yeah, I think the trade was to buy it at 54 and a half, target 68 and a half. Not much to do right now.
Yeah. But headed towards the right the target there, right?
For sure. Yeah, this is a strong one. For sure. Insurance, just in general, has been very strong.
Yeah.
Like look at Aflac.
And you know what's interesting is like financials have been pretty strong all year, but even when we have these kind of risk off moments, insurance kind of acts like the safe haven within financials. So even within the leaders, you're kind of seeing that rotation in harder times.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think something that's interesting is like Buffett's been selling his banks, but he's been adding to his insurance holdings.
Interesting.
So for what
Uh,
that's worth.
you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's hit up LU. Looks like this is Lufax Holdings. It's a package software.
Yeah, $2 billion. This is a
This
China
might be
stock.
China. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is part of the China theme.
Yes. So
Makes
we
sense,
just
right? You look at the last few days.
we just got
Vertical.
daily RSI above 70. This thing has taken off. So yeah, we almost got a double, less than a month, really. Running into this resistance here. We've got a gap to fill here as well at about 440. So that could be another level of resistance. But this one
You think
really,
she gets it done this time?
it could. It certainly could. It's quite the drawdown. It's trying to reverse here. So we are still stuck below a downtrend line that's been in place since the IPO for this stock. Really, it needs to be above.
What would it take to get you to be a buyer of this
I'd
downtrend?
be a buyer above this for. Let's call it five.
Yeah, call it
$5.
Nice even round number.
Yeah.
I mean, a number like that is significant for a penny stock like this, right?
Right. Yeah. And like if China's working too, like this could be a fantastic lottery play. Like look at like Chinese internet, like how this can trend
Right.
so well.
Right.
So I think this is a great high
and I
risk, high
think-
reward vehicle for expressing a bullish thesis on Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and you know, it seems like everybody in the last 2 weeks is looking for a way to play China. And to your point, you know, this is a smaller one. This is one that could benefit from that. Because if you're a fund manager and all of a sudden your team's buying China, you know, do you go out there and buy the BABAs that everyone's buying or the JD.com, those things, or do you kind of go hunting and you know, obviously either one could work, but I could totally see a scenario where you do see these kind of lesser known ones catching a bid for people
Right.
to kind of play that.
I think it'll be both, Patrick. Like you'll see the Alibabas complete that massive
Right.
turn reversal, but you'll get higher returns in
Right.
something like this, a smaller market cap name that can be moved around easier, something that can
Yes.
double in less than a month, like it just
Yeah.
did.
But needs to get above 5 for you, right?
Yeah, yeah, messy in the short term, potentially reversing a long-term downtrend though. So, very interesting one. Who brought this?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Definitely one to keep on your watch list here in the next few weeks. But looks like we only got a couple left. Let's do BN.
Brookfield Corporation. So
You know,
this
we get asked about this one quite a lot.
really $79 billion asset management stock. They do
Yes,
public
sir.
and private investing.
Broke out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay. So this one's been around since 1976. A classic. So I'm going to start with this massive base from last century. And it's still relevant today. The last cycle, we peaked at a key extension level from this base from the 1980s that broke out in 2004. But here we are making new all-time highs in the context of a very strong long-term uptrend. Let's look at some weekly candlesticks. And this is the drawdown from the prior cycle. Looks like it fell over 40%. Took us about 2 years to repair that damage and make new all-time highs. 51 is the level you want to own this above. So we are currently above 51. So you can be long Brookfield, targeting 65. I think it could happen.
Do you think at this point, I mean,
months,
'cause you're not
probably.
that far extended,
Right.
do you think
yeah.
it's okay to buy it here? Would you rather be waiting for a pullback?
You know, this one could pull back. It certainly could. Like, look at these last daily candlesticks. Pretty indecisive right now.
Right.
So it certainly could come back to this breakout level, dance around here, and we get a fresh leg higher into the end of the year. Maybe that's how this plays out. I don't know. It's certainly not as decisive as what we were looking at earlier with that breakaway gap. What was that?
Right.
I forget that stock.
There were a few.
But you know what I'm
I'll
saying.
find
This
it.
is
It
just not the
was-
most decisive resolution. We're no longer overbought. On the breakout, we
Yeah.
couldn't get more overbought than we were in July. So that's not a
By the way,
great sign.
the stock was Acuity, AYI.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
That's the breakaway gap you're talking about.
Yeah, cool. That's my chart of the day, Patrick. Acuity.
Acuity?
Yeah, that was a great chart.
So let's listen, we got one more and then we'll close it out here. We got Elijah wants to see, he said BTC/TRY. So I'm
Bitcoin
guessing maybe
priced
you
in
want to do the
Turkish
opposite of
lira.
that.
Uh,
Is TRY yeah, it is Turkish lira. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
Bitcoin priced in lira. You want to do it?
yeah, let's do it. My machine is loading up here. All right. So if you think Bitcoin priced in US dollars is good, check it out. Priced
I
in
gotta
Turkish.
say, it looks better than Bitcoin priced in dollars.
Yeah, the lira
At least it's
is,
still above the prior cycle highs.
yeah. So I don't even have enough fib extensions. Let's zoom in. Um, so I'll fib it out from the prior cycle drawdown, which came in at around $788,000.
Wait, you're doing Bitcoin US dollar right now, right?
No, this is Turkish lira. The watermark didn't
Oh,
change.
that's what you
This
did.
is
Okay.
Turkish
I
lira.
see what you did. I see what you
Yep.
did.
Okay, so
That's
we're
confusing. Wait, so Bitcoin priced in dollars, priced in lira?
yeah.
Okay.
Um, but this Fibonacci extension level around $2.4 million is a big one. So I think you can buy Bitcoin above 2.4 million, targeting 3.7 million. That's the trade.
That's
Much
the
stronger
trade.
than US dollars. For
All
sure.
right. Why don't you look at it in dollars too? I want to hear your thoughts on it. Because I'll be honest, Sam, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think about it anymore. I mean, this thing's taken forever. It hasn't totally broken down from like a long-term structural perspective in the sense. I mean, I guess you could say that either way, right? Because it is below the prior cycle highs, so in that sense it has broken down, but in terms of this like kind of flag, if you want to call it that, it's kind of still in it, right? It's still in that channel.
It
Very
is
open.
absolutely, it's still in it. And last week we tried to break above the all-time high anchored VWAP, and so far we've failed. We've rolled over, yeah. So we were down 3.5% and then 4%, and now we're back below that VWAP. So really, that's my line in the sand. As long as we're below there, I think the path of least resistance is sideways.
Here's the thing.
I do think this is getting closer to the end.
Here's the thing. So on each failure, right? Because we've seen this so many times where it'll reclaim the VWAP or look like it's finally getting out of that channel or trying or flag, whatever you want to call it. But every single time it's failed, it's made a new low, right? So every time it's made a lower high, it's gone on to make a lower low. It's made a lower low here, or well, made a low. I'm sorry, a lower high, hasn't made a new low yet.
So what if you look at it like this? So like this was the high. So this was a lower high from this one. And then you
Right, you
got
could look at it that way. Yeah.
higher low versus here. Then we got a higher high. And then if we can make a low here,
Yeah, I think that's what I was
and
trying to
try
get at
again.
is you
Yeah.
want to see it make a
Yeah.
decisive higher low here, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point, Patrick. That's
If
something that's overlooked, I think, amongst technicians is just looking at the chart. Is there higher lows and higher highs? Like that's so simple, but so
it is
effective.
simple. Listen, simple is sometimes the best, but simple is not easy,
It's not easy. No, no.
you know.
I like the way you said that.
Especially don't turn on the TV if you want to keep things simple.
No, no, that'll only confuse you.
It'll just confuse you, right? So Sam, I think we got to leave it here for today, but before we go, I want to ask you, give me your favorite chart.
Oh,
I
it's definitely that one, the breakaway gap.
Yeah,
Acuity, right?
I think yeah, that one's great too.
AYI.
But you know what? Mine will be Lowe's because right before this, I really liked Home Depot, but Donovan in the chat there, he nailed it. He said Lowe's broke out first, and it does look a lot better, even though both charts look great.
Right. No, that's a good one too. Consumer discretionary.
Yeah. We
Keep an
always
eye
pick
on
up some new ones, right? What was the Chinese one? LU, right? The
LU.
yeah, the Chinese like penny stock one.
Yeah. This is the YOLO of the day.
That yeah, I will not be buying this one, but I'll be definitely keeping an eye on it and
Yeah.
probably gonna set an alert for that $5 level.
Yeah. That's a big level.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I will see you next week. But thank you guys so much for joining. If you want us to get to your tickers, if we didn't get to it this time. Just be sure to email us at questions@stockmarketmedia.com, and we will be sure to get to it first next episode. Thank you guys again. See you next Tuesday. Thanks. Or next Monday. Sorry, we changed the time. Next
Yeah, we did.
Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.